Imagine a country caught in what feels like an endless cycle of conflict. We're talking about a place where history, geography, and some deeply entrenched divisions have created one of the world's most complex, multi-layered, and honestly, enduring civil wars. It's a decades-long struggle. You've got military rule, fights for democracy, intense battles over immense natural wealth, and a deeply fragmented society. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unraveling the Myanmar crisis. We're going to break down exactly how this nation arrived at this precipice and what's actually at stake on the ground right now.
Okay, let's dive into this. 100 plus. This number isn't just some historical footnote. This single number represents the staggering amount of distinct armed groups fighting within Myanmar's borders today. To put that into perspective, most civil wars you hear about, they're fought between 2, maybe 3 major factions. But in Myanmar, the battlefield is fractured among over 100 different armies, militias, and defense forces. It's an incredibly volatile and intricate puzzle.
Part 1. The 2021 Catalyst. So let's go back to February 1st, 2021. Following the 2020 elections, where Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy won by a massive landslide, the military, known as the tatmadaw, flat out refused to accept the results. Led by General Min Aung Hlaing, they executed a swift and total coup. The timeline is wild. By morning, phone and internet lines went completely black. By midday, the country's elected leaders were arrested and imprisoned, and by the afternoon, the military had seized total control, essentially erasing decades of fragile democratic progress in just a few hours. Initially, millions of citizens took to the streets in these massive peaceful protests, but the military responded with live ammunition and snipers, and that brutal response fundamentally changed the nature of the resistance forever.
Part 2. Roots of the conflict. Now, to really understand how we got here, we have to look back at the people. Myanmar is home to over 130 distinct ethnic groups. The Burma majority makes up roughly 68% of the population, and they live primarily in the Central Plains. But then you had this absolutely crucial 32% made up of vastly diverse minority populations, groups like the Shan, Karen, Kachin, and Chin. And they predominantly live out in the resource-rich border regions. Ever since independence, these minority groups have fiercely sought autonomy, while the central government has fought just as fiercely to prevent the country from fracturing apart.
But the really important point here is how these demographic lines were historically weaponized. During the British colonial era, administrators used a very divided system. They directly ruled the central Burma population, but they granted semi-autonomous administration to the ethnic minorities out on the borders. They even went as far as heavily recruiting minorities into the colonial army while excluding the Burma majority. This imperial strategy entrenched deep systemic divisions and mutual distrust. It literally laid the groundwork for the tension we're seeing today.
And all of that history leads us directly into the shattered hopes of independence. Back in 1947, independence leader Aung San met with ethnic leaders and signed the Panglong Agreement. This was supposed to be a game changer, promising a federal structure and autonomy for minority groups. But tragically, Aung San was assassinated shortly after. So when independence actually arrived in 1948, those promises were pretty much instantly broken. Rebellions erupted almost overnight. Eventually, by 1962, citing the threat of national disintegration, General Ne Win launched a military coup. This plunged Myanmar into a strict, deeply isolating military dictatorship that lasted for nearly 50 years.
Part 3. The war economy. Now, you might be wondering, how does a massive, multi-front civil war keep going for over 7 decades? Well, war is incredibly expensive. We have to look at the immense, hidden economy funding these battlefields. Historically, one of the primary financial engines for ethnic armies has been the infamous Golden Triangle. That's a massive illicit trade nexus right where the borders of Myanmar, Laos, and Thailand meet. For decades, various armed factions funded their operations through a highly lucrative, multi-billion-dollar trade in opium, heroin, and more recently, methamphetamine. This doesn't just impact regional stability, it fuels underground economies globally.
But hey, it's not just narcotics. Myanmar is astonishingly rich in natural resources. We are talking natural gas, oil, gold, highly valuable teakwood, rare earth elements, and some of the absolute finest rubies and sapphires in the world. In a lot of these regions, the ideological fight for ethnic rights is deeply intertwined with a fierce, cutthroat economic war over who actually controls this immense natural wealth. The stark contrast between the extraordinary beauty of these gems and the devastating violence they fund is a really dark reality of this enduring conflict.
Part 4. Rise of the resistance.
Let's jump back to the post-2021 landscape. When the military junta violently crushed the peaceful protests, the people realized something pretty quickly. Protests alone just weren't going to work anymore. The resistance had to evolve. And this brings us to the birth of the PDF, or the People's Defense Force. This is the armed wing of the exiled National Unity Government, basically the civilian counterpart to the junta. What makes the PDF so remarkable is who's actually in it. We're talking about everyday civilians, striking doctors, teachers, university students, bank clerks. Initially, they were armed with literally nothing but hunting rifles, homemade weapons, and Molotov cocktails. But over the years, they've transformed into thousands of semi-regular, battle-hardened troops fighting across the entire country.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer scale of what happened next. The newly formed PDF didn't just fight alone. They actually allied with seasoned ethnic armies who had already been fighting the central government for decades. You've got the Kachin Independence Army, fielding up to 15,000 troops near the Chinese border. Then there's the Arakan Army, a formidable force of over 30,000 fighters dominating Rakhine State. And the Karen National Liberation Army? They hold the record as one of the world's oldest guerrilla movements, active since all the way back in 1949. So suddenly, the junta found itself fighting a unified, nationwide front.
Part 5. Operation 1027.
This unified front eventually culminated in a massive, coordinated offensive. Late in 2023, specifically on October 27th, an alliance of three powerful ethnic armies, known as the Three Brotherhood Alliance, launched a synchronized attack. The momentum shift was unbelievable. Within just the first month, they captured a staggering 150 military bases. 150! They seized tanks, forced thousands of junta soldiers to surrender, and took control of highly lucrative trade routes right on the Chinese border. This devastating blow totally shattered the military's aura of invincibility and literally stunned global military analysts. No one saw it happening that fast.
However, despite those massive losses, the junta has managed to survive, and that's largely due to its air superiority. And to understand that, we have to look at the complex web of foreign influence. Russia stands out as the junta's most crucial direct ally. They provide fighter jets, pilot training, weapons, and diplomatic cover. China, on the other hand, well, they play a much more complex balancing act. Driven by the need to secure vital oil and gas pipelines that run right through Myanmar down to the Indian Ocean, Beijing basically maintains pragmatic relationships with both the military junta in the capital and the ethnic rebel groups operating along its border. It's a very delicate geopolitical dance.
Part 6. The humanitarian toll. As this conflict continues to gridlock, the absolute heaviest price is being paid by everyday people. And we really must address one of the darkest chapters of Myanmar's recent history here, the Rohingya crisis. Stripped of their rights by the 1982 citizenship law, this Muslim minority faced brutal military operations back in 2017. Entire villages were burned to the ground, and over 750,000 stateless people were forced to flee for their lives across the border into Bangladesh. It was an event that international observers widely labeled as ethnic cleansing. And today, the Rohingya who remain in Myanmar are still tragically caught in the crossfire of this ongoing war.
Looking at the situation as of 2026, the human cost across all of Myanmar has escalated into a staggering catastrophe. 3.5 million. That's how many people have been internally displaced. To put that into perspective, that's like the entire population of a major city just uprooted from their homes overnight. Healthcare systems have largely collapsed, there are widespread reports of starvation risks, and estimates suggest there have been over 50,000 casualties since the 2021 coup. Villages are empty, schools are destroyed, and millions are just trying to survive, living in constant fear of the next airstrike.
Which leaves us looking toward the future, asking a really profound and complex question. What is Myanmar's ultimate fate? As we look at the board right now, several scenarios emerge. Will the military slowly collapse, eventually making way for a new federal system? Will the country officially balkanize, permanently fracturing into independent ethnic states? Or will all sides just dig in, entering a frozen, endless war in a perpetual stalemate? The roots here run so deep, the factions are many, and the ultimate fate of millions hangs completely in the balance. Collapse, fragmentation, or endless war. Whatever happens next, Myanmar remains one of the greatest and most tragic geopolitical puzzles of our time.